Welcome to our podcast. My name is Amelia.
My name is Sherrick, and this is Amelia.
And Sherrick, what are you doing?
As we have talked about, it is everything and nothing, so I hope you like it.
I mean, our 10 friends seem to like it, so that's
Yeah!
enough.
Shout out to all of you who have thus far given us feedback, whether it be on the Twitter machine or other social medias, or just texting us, or just kind of, after we've badgered you relentlessly, just been like, hey, we like it. It's cool. So we really, 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 really appreciate that.
Yes,
So, hey,
thank you so
thanks.
much. Yeah. So yeah, last week we talked about ridiculous songs of the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and that was super fun. This week I think it might get a little more serious, but if you can tell from how we talk and relate to each other, we make everything funny. So,
Yes.
yeah, so we're going to talk about movies a little bit and awards season.
Because
But
it's
before
award
we do
season.
that, yes, although technically the Oscars sort of like bring to an end the award season, kind of. But yes, but before we do that, let's talk about what's going on with us. So, Sherrick, how are you
Yeah.
doing? What is up with you?
I'm doing fantastically. So pretty good week overall. Just going to touch on what happened on February 14th for me. Myself and my lovely wife and our friends Dustin and Marsha went to the Brew City Bruisers ex Mondo Lucha, which was Brew City Bruisers' roller derby, which for those of you who are uninitiated, it's incredibly convoluted, but not in a bad way. Like, I think for the most part, people are like, "Oh, convoluted means bad," but like, there's a lot of rules and stuff like that. But the announcers and stuff were very, very keen and understanding on the fact that a lot of the people that were coming may not understand how roller derby works, and so they spent most of their time, instead of just like commentating on the action, they split it between doing so and also explaining the rules and explaining like why points were being scored and what was going on. um, so there was that, and they did it in the UW Panther Arena in my city, and so they had like half of it taped off for the roller rink for the roller derbying, and then the other half just had a wrestling ring just sitting idly by, waiting for its time to shine. And so after the roller derby, which I want to say lasted about 2 hours or so, then they did like 2 hours of wrestling, and it was super dope. With their main event being a four-way match I'm probably going way more than what people are interested in, but it was a four-way match for the women's championship of Mondo Lucha, which was
Ooh.
it was super great. So yeah, that was my week. It was super great. Amelia, how was your week?
It was pretty good. Monday night, I got together with a couple of friends to watch The Bachelor, as we do. Sorry, I talk about The Bachelor every week, but that's kind of the main event when it's on. But anyway, so we were watching The Bachelor and being just like really ridiculous. And my friend Amber, who you will meet soon, she will be a guest soon. Um, she has worked for many years on Saturdays, and she will come over to my house often on Saturday, and we'll just hang out, watch movies or TV or whatever. But we have this concept that we started calling Saturday Night Amber, because getting to the end of like a 6-day week, working 6 days, she would just be kind of like loopy and like just out of it, and things would be a lot funnier than they normally are. And so we call that Saturday Night Amber. And on Monday, we just would laugh so hard about the stupidest shit. And I looked at her and I was like, "We are Saturday Night Amber today, aren't we?" And she was like, "Yes, yes, we are." And the thing that set us off the hardest was this picture that she found of Chris Christie pouring a
Um,
small thing of M&Ms into a larger thing of M&Ms.
oh my
What? Like,
gosh.
we just were so baffled by this picture and what was happening. And because we were just so, like, tired and out of it,
Mhm.
we just could not stop laughing about it. And our friend Amanda was like, it's funny. It's not that funny. And we were like,
You don't get
we
it.
know.
You don't
We
get it.
know.
We understand how unfunny it is, but that is
Yes.
why it is funny.
Right. Because then we'd start to slow down and then we'd look at each other and start laughing again.
Yes, perfect. That is
Ugh, I love
perfect.
those moments. So, yeah, so that was a highlight of my week. Um, but yeah, so with that, I guess let's get to the main event.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do it.
so when deciding what to talk about this week, we were like, okay, well, we've talked about commercials and we've talked about music. What
Hmm.
else can we talk about? So we were like, let's talk about movies, even though, as Sherrick puts it, he doesn't watch a lot of movies, which is
Uh,
fine.
y- yeah. So, to quick jump, uh, the joke that I make when people are like, "Hey, so blah blah blah," or obscure movie reference in interspersed in conversation, I kind of just go, "Well, if there's a movie that you like, there's a good chance that I haven't seen it," and it's not because I am like some sort of like old man get off my lawn about films. It's just like growing up, we never really went to the movie theater. Like I can count the number of films that I have seen in theaters from like the age of 5 to like 13 or 14 on one hand. Um, prime against them, I want to say, is going to be the Rugrats movie. I don't remember why it was that we went and saw that, but we had to go. I had to go and see it or something, or maybe my brother had to. I really don't remember, but like that was like the one and only one that I can think of like off top head that I like saw in films. Oh, that one and like the original Power Rangers movie. But like so anyway, the whole point of it is I just don't really see films, and it's like my wife has a film festival membership, so she's seen like probably like 17,000 times more films than I have. And it's not like I have anything against them. Movies are good and great, but I typically don't go alone. And for a long time in my adult life, I didn't really have anybody to go to movies with because I was always working or busy, you know. So I did not get to see many, if any, of the films that were nominated for any awards this year, but I think that's going to change possibly coming up shortly. I know Parasite was a big, big deal. My wife is obsessed with this film, and like the how could you have not seen this film kind of obsessed, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you went, I was busy, I don't know. But yeah, so that's just the long and short of things. Feel free to shame me in on Twitter. You can tweet us at ASWAYDPOD. I think I got that right. Or you can tweet me directly at A Black Sparrow and be like, "Why haven't you seen this film? You dirty, dirty, awful human." And I'll be like, "I'm sorry. I'll do better
Wow.
next time." Parental unit. I'm so sorry.
I do not think that you are a terrible person for not seeing a lot of movies. I think that is totally fine. But yeah, so I was sort of approaching this as like I'm going to tell you about like my movie watching experience and you can chime in and ask questions and we'll
Yeah.
just go from there. So, I grew up watching movies a lot. My dad loves movies. Um, I don't know that I've been to the theater like a ton. I mean, I usually go to like a handful of movies every year, but yeah, we would rent movies a lot growing up. That was like every Saturday night.
Hmm.
And I've seen a ton of really old movies. Dad really likes like 30s and 40s movies. Um, so so I always grew up watching a lot of movies. And a few years ago, I want to say like 2012 or 13, um, I made the decision to like be more intentional about seeing Oscar nominated movies, mainly because every year the Oscar nominations would come out and I'd be like, "Oh, I wanted to see that one and that one and that one," and I never would.
Hmm.
And so it was more of like okay, this year you wanted to see most of these movies, and now you like I made a deadline for myself of like, okay, you need to see these movies before the Oscars are on because you like watching the Oscars. And so now you have like something urging you to do it.
Right.
Because it's more fun to watch an awards show if you actually like care about what's nominated.
Hmm.
And I've always really liked awards shows, although I will say the Oscars are not my favorite. They are a little bit stuffy and a little bit boring, is compared to like some other ones. I really like the Emmys. The Golden Globes are usually pretty good. Um, I like the Tonys as well. But that ones can be hit or miss depending on if I've made it to New York in that year or not.
Hmm.
Because otherwise I won't know anything that's nominated. Um, but yeah, so like over the last several years, I've really made it intentional to watch the movies I want to watch from the list.
Hmm.
And it became a thing after a couple of years, like, yeah, the first couple of years, I just would watch the ones I wanted to watch. And then it became this thing where it was like, I have to watch all of them. And when I say all of them, I mean the major categories like Best Picture, the acting, directing, screenwriting awards, not every little short and everything, because that's really hard to do because usually there's only like a month between nominations coming out and the actual awards show. Um, so so yeah, it became this thing where I was like a completionist and trying to watch them all, and that became a little bit much. And so this year I was like, I just do not have the energy for that. I just
Hmm.
don't care to watch some of these movies. Um, and so I crammed in about six of them in the day of and day before the Oscars.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like I said, I like a deadline. So it was like, okay, we're gonna watch the Oscars. I need to care, so I'm gonna watch these movies that I want to watch. So I ended up watching, let's see, Parasite, Little Women, Jojo Rabbit, Marriage Story. Uh, Shoot, what else did I watch? Oh
That's on there
yeah,
as well.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I saw that one, and I
Okay.
saw Bombshell, which wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but was nominated in a couple acting categories. And I also saw there's another one on the acting list that I saw as well, I believe, but it doesn't matter. The point is that I really tried to like make it a point to watch just the ones I cared about instead of like trying to be a completionist. Because like 1917, I've heard is really good, and the way that it's shot is like it's shot in um, really long scenes and cut together so that it almost looks like it's one continuous shot. And so like that part sounds interesting to me, but the actual plot of the movie being World War I, I'm like, nah, I don't care. um, and there were a couple others that I was just like, I don't really care, and I yeah. So, um, but yeah, so that's been sort of my thing the last few years, and um, I just like storytelling. I just like
Yeah.
movies, TV, books, podcasts. Like I just really like good storytelling.
Yep.
Um, and so I think that's where my love of that comes from. Um,
And I will definitely like I think that's one of the interests that we definitely dovetail on because as an actor, I better well fucking love storytelling. Otherwise, what the hell am I doing?
right.
Um, so like I just generally get my quote unquote storytelling fix from mediums other than movies. It's you mentioned like podcasts that I tend to watch like stuff on YouTube, which is less storytelling, but I'm a big gamer. I
Mhm.
enjoy video games, so like there's so little time for me. I mean, I have more time than I used to, but like that's kind of just become the pattern, where I would be like, well, I can't really justify spending $60 on this game that I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to play,
Mhm.
but I want to know how the story goes and how they tell because that's how games they've become like cinematic adventures in some
Mhm.
regards.
Mhm.
Um, So I'll watch somebody play through it, and sometimes it's like you get extra enjoyment out of like watching, getting somebody's reaction to the
Mhm.
story and the gameplay and stuff like that. So I mean, sometime down the road we'll kind of flip the script on Amelia, and I'll talk about some games that I feel have very good storytelling elements to kind of keep her interested, and we'll go
Yeah,
into
no, that
games.
sounds great.
But for now, like that's kind of just where I come from, is that like it's not that I'm like anti movie, and I figure nobody thinks that of me, but it's just, oh, one person I can think of thinks that of me, but it's like I'm just like, sorry. I'm sorry I haven't seen like, you know, what's
Yeah.
that movie that what the line "This is Bat Country" comes from? Uh I can't remember. I think Johnny Depp's in it. Someone's going to be screaming at us on Twitter about it.
Yeah, I have
Um,
no idea.
so I'm like, I know like pop culture lines like from like
Mhm.
that, or
Mhm.
like the, well, that's just your opinion, man, from again, a movie that I think
Mhm.
it's Big Lebowski. I think that's what that's
Mhm.
from, but I haven't
Mhm.
seen it. So like,
Mhm.
so I think that's where
Yeah.
people kind of come at me, is that they'll be like, wait, this,
Right.
that, and the other line, but you don't know like what it's from,
Mhm.
or like, I can get some, like, I'll throw a meme out there from like The Office, but I've seen maybe like half an episode combined between both the British and the American versions of it. So, you know, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. I actually kind of wanted to, even as the novice, start by driving a question towards you. Tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about your opinion of Marriage Story, because this film has driven one of the memes that I thought was the funniest that I have seen in recent memory. So
Mhm.
I want you to tell me about your thoughts on it, and then I want to,
Okay.
give you my
Yes.
very uneducated opinion on it.
Yes. Okay. So, this was the first movie I watched of this Oscar season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it was on Netflix, so it was easy to get. um, and it was basically like, because I just haven't been like in the mood lately for a lot of like serious stuff. I've been more in the mood for like sitcoms and fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of going into Oscar season this year, I was just kind of like, my God, it's so depressing with the weather. Like, I don't want to watch this right now. And so I almost sat out this Oscar season because I just didn't feel like it. But then I was like, okay, I've heard Marriage Story is really good. I can just watch it at home on Netflix. Just let's try it. And I really liked it. I don't know if liked it is the right word, but I I'm glad I saw it. It's hard to watch at times. But it's a very interesting look at a relationship as they're going through a divorce. I assumed, I mean, I knew that it was going to be about a couple getting divorced, but I
Mm-hmm.
assumed that um, there would be like at least a little bit at the beginning of their relationship and like that you would see it start to devolve. But I mean, from pretty much the first minute, they're already like separated, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so you get some information as the movie goes on about why they're getting divorced. Um,
Okay.
but it's not like you see it happen. And so I sort of like movies like that where it's like they don't give you a bunch of exposition up front. They just kind of drop you into it. Because I find it really interesting to like try to figure out where it's going, where this came from. I mean, if it's too confusing, that's a problem. But like, I really like the sort of mystery of like, okay, how did we get here? Especially because with a movie, I mean, we're talking about like a 2 hour, sometimes 3 hour span of time. We're
Mm-hmm.
not talking about like a long anthology. And I mean, that's something I really like about TV is that I really like being able to tell a longer form story. But the thing about movies is that, like you could only explain so much. And so yeah, I really like being able to be like, okay, how did we get here? Where are we going? And so I found that very interesting. Um, it took me a little while to get into it. And like I said, it was hard to watch at points because it's pretty I mean, it's a couple going through divorce. It's not
Yeah.
exactly like a happy topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but and yeah, there's a scene near the end that's really just really beautiful. Um, and yeah, there's like a couple scenes that like I still keep thinking about
Mhm.
um a couple of weeks later. So, I don't want to give away too much if people want to see it, but yeah, and I felt very strongly that Adam Driver should have won Best Actor. He did a phenomenal job in that movie. I did not see all the Best Actor nominees, so I
Mhm.
guess I maybe can't say that definitively.
Okay.
But based on what I did see, I thought that he did a phenomenal job. And my friend Amber, who watched it with me, she also saw Joker, which I did not.
Okay.
And that's who won was Joaquin Phoenix. And she was
Yes.
like, no, he did not deserve that at all. Yeah,
Which
and his
we
family.
can get about to we can get into that in a second because from I've got some duality thoughts about that. But
Yes,
anyway.
yes. So, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. I don't know if I would ever watch the whole movie again, but there are a couple
Okay.
of scenes that I feel like I would rewatch. In fact, I
Mhm.
did rewatch a scene from it last night. So yeah, it's yeah. I'm
I
glad I
think it's
saw it.
very interesting having kind of just listened to like your take on it.
Mhm.
Just like because obviously from what I have understood and know of it, it is very visceral. Obviously, it's a movie called Marriage Story, but it is very much about the destruction of a marriage as opposed to like the
Mhm.
story of it. I mean, it
Mhm.
kind of just goes to towards the like from what I understand from listening to you, it just kind of goes through the end of said marriage as opposed to like how
Mhm.
it came to be, which is kind of
Mhm.
the opposite of what you would consider of it. But
Mhm.
the scene that I'm familiar with is probably the scene that everyone that is listening to this podcast and has probably caught up with me is talking about. Is that's the scene in their apartment, and this like before I'd even heard of this as a film, I just was like seeing memes of Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver yelling at each other, and then him punching a hole in the wall, and
Mhm.
they were always thrown with like such ridiculous like
Oh yeah,
things
I
on
bet.
top of them. And it's like I think the one that caught my attention the most is like it wasn't even necessarily like a sequence or a sequential meme per se, but it was just like a everyone who took a college like acting class is familiar with this scene where it's like two married people having like an intense drag out argument, and it
Uh-huh.
is like fucking peak cringe because like
Mhm.
I even remember being like having a scene partner and having to do a scene, and it was like not necessarily like an argument to the level of the one in Marriage Story, but it's just like
Mhm.
it's almost like a rite of passage as someone who's taking classes for a BFA in like theater arts is like you have to do a scene in which you are just angry with your spouse and you're saying hurtful things at them and it's just
Mhm.
devolves into a shouting match. And so I
Mhm.
was just like, Jesus Christ, this is so ridiculous.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so that's just the one that I wanted to touch on. It's that scene just I mean
Yeah.
it's funny, but like if you take that scene for what it actually is in the context of the film, it's so like, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not like people are going to freak out, but like it's so cringy. Like it's just like, but not in like a cringy like ooh I don't want to like this is awful kind of way. It's like a ooh this is hard to watch. Like
Yes.
these two
Okay.
people that
Yes.
like yeah, so like everyone put your pitchforks down.
Yeah,
But
I
no.
thought that's where you were going with the word cringy, and
Hmm.
so I was letting you go there but I wasn't sure. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I would say that was one of the scenes that I actually really liked. I'm sort of a masochist though when it comes to stuff like this. I don't know why I enjoy watching stuff like that, but
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe not enjoy, but um it just yeah, I mean, that scene was really uh it was really hard to watch because they are yelling and saying really hurtful things to each other, and the fight ends with Adam Driver's character telling her that like if he knew that like their son would be okay, he wishes that she was dead. Um, yeah, it's really bad. It's really, really bad.
That's a big old
Um,
jinkies.
yeah. And then like he immediately like collapsed and is crying and is like hugging her legs.
Hmm.
Um, and it just like as awful as that statement is, there's just something like I don't know, cathartic about the whole scene or like
Okay.
I don't know. Like yeah, it's obviously an awful thing to say,
Hmm.
but I think it's just like because up until that point, they haven't argued, they haven't fought, and in some ways you're like, I don't understand why they're getting divorced. They don't even seem to understand why they're getting divorced.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's a lot of unsaid stuff, I think. At one point near the beginning of the movie, Scarlett Johansson's character is talking to a divorce lawyer and is basically saying like we just stopped talking to each other. We just like stopped relating to each other. We just stopped caring about each other. But I
Hmm.
don't know how that happened. And so that I think to me that was one of the interesting things was to show how this marriage di- dissolved basically from apathy
Hmm.
and entropy. Like it just didn't put effort into it. I think, and so to see this scene where they finally like have an argument and sort of in a roundabout way talk about how they got where they did,
Hmm.
um it's like cathartic. And I think that the the feeling of saying hurtful things to somebody in the middle of an argument is a pretty, I don't know, universal thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not a great human trait that we have, but it's something that we do. And even if those hurtful things are true and even if we mean them to a degree, like it's more about the impact than it is about the thing. Um
Yeah, it's definitely impact versus intent. Like, you know.
yeah, and so as awful as it as the things are that they're saying to each other and as awful as, and I don't want to condone telling your former spouse that you wish they were dead, but there's
Hmm.
just something about that that like you know that he doesn't really mean that. It just like it's just been built up so long inside of him and both of them of
Hmm.
like this hurt and pain that they've caused each other without really talking about it or doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And so there's something like really awful about watching it, but also just really like human about it that
Hmm.
I just really, I don't know, it made me feel things. And yeah, I'm dead inside. So
That's up for debate, but we won't touch that now.
yeah.
But I feel like we could talk about this way, way more, but we should probably
Oh,
move
yeah.
on because
Move
there's
on. Yeah.
so much to talk about. We don't have a whole lot of time.
Oh, yeah, for
At least.
sure.
So, actually, real quick, let's fucking hit this Joker thing because I
Okay.
want to like we don't have to talk about the whole movie as a whole.
Uh huh.
Because I'm kind of like I'm not a big comic buff, but I'm familiar enough with like the origin stories, and I'm also a person that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. So when
Mm hmm.
people would be like like as a trolling
Mm hmm.
mechanism when you're watching a video game or whatever, people be like, watch out, this person's the villain. I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm still gonna watch so that I can figure out why that person is the villain and what their
Mm
motivations are and stuff.
hmm. Mm
But
hmm.
like, you're not gonna shake me by giving
Yeah.
spoilers. So I kind of pretty much know the gist of the way that the film shakes out.
Mm
But
hmm.
I wanted to talk about the duality of it a little bit, and that like Joaquin Phoenix kind of came out and was like, "Hey, like I'm glad I got this award, but there are so many people that got like people of color and indigenous people and stuff that are basically shut out of these awards." And it's like, yeah, I'm really glad that he spoke up about that.
Mm hmm.
Um, but on the flip side of things, there's also a lot of stories that are circling around about like his very unprofessional and reckless conduct while on set of the movie.
Mm hmm.
And it kind of spoke shades of the way that what's his face that played Joker in Suicide Squad? I can't remember his name
Oh,
either.
Jared Leto.
Thank you, Jared Leto was also doing some really like
Mm-hmm.
bizarre and immature things, and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you're speaking up, but you have to also like police
Mhm.
yourself and not like,
Mhm.
maybe this won't impact people as unless you're like really like into like theater
Mhm.
and acting and things like that. But it's just like you can't just go like, well, I'm wild and crazy because I'm playing a wild and
Mhm.
crazy character. Like method acting like that is, in my opinion, is bullshit. Like you can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, I think I heard some story about Jared Leto like leaving like an animal head or some ridiculous nonsense on a co worker's like station, or just like playing pranks that were just like bizarre and immature and like,
Mhm.
I don't know, just like being really unsafe on set and stuff like that. And that is like, that kind of made me a little bit more upset knowing that he was given this award, but it was because he was like using all these strange and bizarre tactics under the guise of like method acting. Like that,
Yeah.
no, don't,
Yeah.
no, don't do that. Don't. Method acting is an awful way to try and do things. Like it's dangerous, and I'm not gonna soapbox about it, but like just don't do it, like.
Mhm.
so so yeah, sorry, I just wanted to touch on that real quick because it's like I'm glad that he used the
Mhm.
platform to speak out and be like,
Mhm.
hey, let's pay more attention to people of color and not shut them out of this. But also
Mhm.
you gotta be a good human being yourself, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that I do like about awards shows is I do, especially in the last few years, more and more people are using their platform and their speech time to highlight some sort of issue, which I think is cool. I like that. And the things that he brought up were good things, both in his Golden Globe speech and his Oscar speech. He brought up some social issues and um, he went off in sort of weird ways. It could have been said a little bit better, I think, um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like, yeah, as I understand it, and I'd have to fact check this because I don't know, I don't pay a ton of attention to Joaquin Phoenix, but um, that like, yeah, there's some questionable stuff about his character. And then also, like, it just really pisses me off that the director of Joker has basically said that, like, he's never going to make a comedy again because, like, we've ruined comedies because everybody's offended by stuff.
Oh, don't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Let's not. Because I mean
Yeah.
that'll be a bonus episode for a further time.
Yeah.
But like, okay. I mean,
Yep. Yeah.
It's your career.
We can talk about snowflakes another time,
Sure.
but yeah, I just like I knew that he had said some stuff like that, and so that really pissed me off and made me not want to see the movie as well. So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah,
Anyway,
um,
hey,
yes,
let's. I was just gonna break up the 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 downer time with a brand new segment for you.
okay.
I was gonna reserve this till later, but I thought it'd be weird if I did like two like what the hell kind of
No, I like
things
it.
like
We
back
can
to
break
back.
up this up. Yeah.
Yeah, so this a brand new segment on Amelia and Sherrick, What Are You Doing? Is called Hey, Finish That Headline, and I'll come up with like a theme song for it, but I'm too lazy
Okay.
to do it right now. The segment is as labeled. I'm gonna read a headline or two for you, and I need you to do your best job on finishing what you think the headline is.
Oh no.
Um,
Okay.
so I happen to be looking for my Amelia, what the fuck is this of the week, and I happen to find some ones, and I won't lie, I'm pulling a fair amount of these from the Florida Man Reddit, but they're still very, very funny.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
our very first one, um, let's see here. All right, so our very first one on Finish That Headline is Florida man pretended to be member of. Give that to you one more time. Florida man pretended to be member of dot dot dot.
Oh my god.
I am staying super vague because if I say more, it's I want to see where your brain goes on this.
Okay. Uh, Florida man pretends to be member of
Blank in fraud scheme.
the KKK.
That's a great guess. If you're playing along at home, tweet at us ASWAYDPOD, pause the episode, just say what you think it is, and then see if you're right. The answer is Florida man pretends to be member of Wu-Tang Clan in fraud scheme.
Well,
Oh,
I was right about the a clan. Very
just a
different
different,
clan.
different clan that is better
Yep.
for sure.
Okay.
All
So
right,
here's the
got
thing. That was the
got
thing that came into my mind first, and then I was like, "Is that racist?"
it. Yes. Potentially, considering that I did not show you what the man's picture was, and he was black. So,
Hey, he could still pretend to be in the KKK. Last year in
okay,
the Oscar movies, there was a movie called Black Klansman, so
true.
based
Which
on a
also
true
featured
story.
Adam Driver.
It
He was
did.
very good in it. I did see that film. So,
Yes.
for those of you, you can start keeping track of which films I have seen, and you can start with that one. That one, the Rugrats movie, the original Power Rangers movie. More to come. All right.
Oh, you've also mentioned seeing the new Power Rangers. So there's four
Yes, there's
that we
four.
know
There's
you've seen,
four,
and Knives
and
Out.
Knives Out. So
Yes.
five. We're at five already. Okay.
Yes.
I got one more for you, and then we can get back into the films.
Okay.
Uh, Florida man keeps bag of drugs in. There's a good chance you may have already seen this headline.
I have not seen this
Okay.
headline. Um, so many things floating around my head. Florida man keeps drugs in his
First thing that comes to mind, go for
porta potty.
it.
Apparently, I assume that this gentleman does not live in a place with an actual bathroom.
So the headline is Florida man keeps bag of drugs in a bag labeled bag of drugs.
See, I was making it too complicated.
Yep, he definitely was just straight up. Nah, this is my bag of drugs. I wasn't gonna try and make like a southern accent because obviously this guy is from Florida, but still, like, nope, this is my bag of drugs. What's in there?
Yep.
Meth, cocaine,
Yep.
literally drugs.
Yep.
So I hope you liked it. That was finish that headline
Oh my
with
god. I
Amelia
like
and
it.
Sherry.
I like it.
Now back to our regularly scheduled talk on the films that were lauded for many nominations and awards.
hmm Um, yeah, I mean, just to kind of like go through a quick overview of some of the ones I saw. I thought that Bombshell was pretty good. About the takedown of Roger Ailes at Fox News
Mm-hmm.
amidst sexual harassment. I thought that was really good, and Regina Spektor wrote a song for it
Yes,
about
Regina
being a
Spektor.
badass lady, and so I really like that. You should check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. I thought Little Women was good, but I
Is
didn't
it,
think it
does
was
it
like as amazing as everybody was said it was.
okay? Does
I
it
mean,
follow along the play, or is it kind of just
um,
like is it like, you know,
I guess
do they?
here's where I don't know. Several film versions. I think this is the fifth film version or sixth
Oh,
film version.
jinkies. Okay.
Yeah. And the original book. I have not read the book, and I've only ever seen the 1994 Winona Ryder version of the movies.
Okay.
So, I guess I can't say for sure how it follows along with anything really. The thing that I think was interesting about it, that I think critics liked about it, is that it starts almost at the end, and so a lot of the story is told almost as if by flashback. So
Okay.
it kind of goes back and forth in time a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
so Little Women is about these four sisters, and it starts when they're probably like, I don't know, teenagers, and goes to when they're like, I don't know, in their mid 20s or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a span of like probably 10 to 12 years or something.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so it kind of goes back in time, and I don't know how the book is, but I know at least like other film versions are basically just chronological. So,
Okay.
so that was interesting, and of course, it was directed and written by Greta Gerwig, and you know, I do understand the upset about her not being nominated for Best Director. It's sort of weird that any movie can be nominated for Best Picture and not Best Director because
Yeah,
it's
that
like
does seem
so tied
ridiculous.
together.
Hmm.
Um, so
It's kind of like a slap in the face of being like, "Hey, your film was great, but it had literally nothing to do with the director,"
right, which is
which is like,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
So, and the fact that, like no women were nominated is pretty
Hmm.
shitty, and there's a lot of systemic problems with that and whatever, but um
I'm looking
yeah.
at the cast list real quick here, and I've got um, I love that Bob Odenkirk is in it because he's a person that is typically known
In
as a
comedy.
comedic, yeah, a
Yeah.
comedic actor.
I
So
know, I
it's
was surprised that he was in it. He isn't
I,
in it
I
very
always like,
much, but
okay, I
yeah.
was gonna say I always love when actors get to kind of stretch their
Mhm.
like like actors that are particularly known for
Yeah.
serious or drama or whatever. Like this is gonna be a
Mhm.
weird like a
Mhm.
weird uh comparison, but it's like when like Jason Statham entering the Fast series, like the Fast and Furious series, because obviously he is known as just straight up ass kicker. So for him to like actually have like funny bits and like get to be
Mhm.
able to be funny
Mhm.
on top of that is neat.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Also, Florence Pugh is in this film, and she is most known to me as playing a WWE wrestler in a film that was produced by The Rock called Fighting with My Family.
Oh.
So that's kind of interesting to me, and believe it or not, makes me kind of want to see it just to see. Like, I haven't seen Fighting
Mhm.
with My Family yet, but it
Mhm.
is on my list of things to do, and so kind of
Mhm.
just I don't know, checking
Yeah,
that out. But
she was nominated for Best Supporting.
I
She
see that.
plays the youngest sister. And what was cool about that, and has to do a lot with the writing and the directing, but um that character is seen as the baby sister, and in other versions is um I don't know, in some ways kind of hated. And I felt like they made her a little more multi-dimensional, and I thought that she did a really good job. They also made it a little more contemporary. Yes, it's still set during the Civil War, but
Hmm.
um, at one point, somebody is talking to her about marrying this guy, possibly marrying this guy for his money, and how she shouldn't do that. And she gives this whole speech about how, like, don't try to tell me that marriage is not an economic proposition, at least for women, because,
Hmm.
like, the children belong to him, everything belongs to him. Like, if anything happens to me, like, I don't have anything, and I can't make money and take care of myself on my own. So don't sit here and tell me that like marriage is all about romance when it
Yeah.
has everything to do with money, for
Yeah.
women at this time. And
Right.
so they did a really good job, I felt like, of pointing out some of these things about the time period, um, that and making the characters kind of feminist, I guess,
Hmm.
without pulling you so far out of it that you're just like, okay, I get it. You've made it for this contemporary audience, but you're wearing old clothes or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like they did a good job of weaving that in. So, like, I still
Okay.
really liked it. And I'd kind of like to see it again just to like see how I like it upon rewatch, but it wasn't my favorite of the ones I saw, I guess.
Okay.
So,
A couple of other things that I can bring to the table on this one is that according to Wikipedia, which we know is sometimes a fount of correct knowledge, this is the seventh adaptation of the
Mm.
1868 novel, which is wild to me that we keep. I mean, if they can keep retelling the stories, great. But to me, it's like we've got, I don't know, that's, we can get into the whole
Mm-hmm.
recycling content in another episode. But also Timothy Chalamet is in there, and I have a friend that is obsessed with him, and so I saw that
Mm-hmm.
name and I was like, I know that name because my friend loves talking about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was
And
really good.
also Florence Pugh is currently in a relationship with a one Zach Braff,
Oh yeah, I did
allegedly,
know that.
who is like 20 years her senior, but good
Yep.
for her, I guess.
Yep.
He's like 44 at this point. Yeah, good
Mm-hmm.
for him. Good for him and good for her.
Yep.
Not obviously not here to tell y'all who can and can't be in relationships. I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
huh, would not
Yep.
have expected them to be a couple.
Yep.
But there you go.
So yeah. What else?
Uh, I feel like we should, like, I want to obviously talk about Parasite, but I feel like we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't because like my wife will desperately wants me to see this film at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently it's real close.
Here's
So
here's what
I don't
I'll
want to get
yeah.
too deep into it, but I
Yeah,
do want
that's
to touch
fine.
on it,
I don't want
despite
to get
my,
too deep in it either because
yeah,
part of the brilliance of the movie is like not knowing too much about it going in.
yeah. And normally, like I literally just we just touched on this like not that long ago. Normally, I do not care about spoilers, but like every time she brings this up, she has this look in her eyes of like, I why haven't you, like, why aren't
Mm-hmm.
you as excited to see this film as I am? So like I
Mm-hmm.
I'm breaking my normal rules to be like, all right, let's do this. But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so let's I guess talk a little bit more about the awards that it won and less about the movie itself, if that makes sense. I don't know. You tell
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
what you want
Well,
to say about it.
so I didn't know very much about the movie going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and basically the only reason I made it a priority to see it is because Steph told me to watch it. Um, she was like, "That's the only neat
she's
movie you need to watch of this Oscar season."
she's
Okay,
been
bye.
called out.
Yep. Um, and so I was like, "Okay, I'll watch it." Um, yeah, and I'm super happy that it won Best Picture because I think it's really cool that foreign language film won Best Picture. Um, and I having watched it, I came out of it going like, I don't know if it's gonna win Best Picture or not, but it should win Best Screenplay, Best Original Screenplay, because it just like it kept me guessing through a lot of it.
Okay.
And that makes it sound like it's sort of a mystery or a thriller, and it has those elements, but like it really
Mm-hmm.
has everything. Like it's kind of everything at the same time. It's drama, it's comedy, it's thrilling, it's yeah, there's just a lot to it, and it's really hard to pigeonhole it. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard to describe it, and it's really hard to get people to see it because you don't want to tell them too much about it because at least for me and I think for Steph, part of the fun of seeing it was like not knowing some of the things that were coming, that
Mm-hmm.
things would happen and would be like, I would have never expected that to happen. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, because on the flip side, I really care about spoilers. I, but I'm also one of those people that like, I'm not going to get really pissed off at somebody spoiling something for me if it's been like a little while or yeah, like I understand that there's like sort of a statute of limitations on it, and that if I really didn't want to get spoiled by something, I make it a priority to see it like when it comes out or whatever.
Right.
So, um, because yeah, I mean, not everything. There are some things that I don't care as much about being spoiled about. So, um, but for me, some of the fun of watching movies or TV or reading books and stuff uh
Knowing
is not
what's,
knowing.
yeah, and I think that's true of most people. I mean, there are weird people like me,
Mhm.
but that like don't care and are gonna follow along anyway. But
Mhm.
I think for the most
Yeah.
part, and that's kind of where if we do end up doing a podcast about like, you know, that like retelling stuff, is just like how many times can you retell a story
Mhm.
and before it's like, I mean, there
Mhm.
are base story elements, there's going to be conflict and all that kind of stuff, these base story elements that obviously are going to stand the test of time, but like to kind of just use an example, like how many times can you tell a story of like for the most part, like historically accurate like war films, like how many times can you
Mhm.
pump those out
Mhm.
without changing too much that like
Right.
I don't want to offend anybody by like yucking their yums, but it's, to me it's just like you can only tell this story so many times before it's like,
Right.
okay, we get it. Like we're in the age of right now where this is being recorded in 2020, where 20, I want to say 2017 through like the present, at least as far as this is being recorded, is there have been a ton of like remakes and reboots and things of that nature. Like they're like, oh, Friends is coming back and this is coming back and the other thing is coming back and we're redoing this show again, and Will and Grace is coming back, and it's just like, but you finished the story, so can we tell a new one?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
kind of
I definitely
cheapens it.
think we should do another episode about some of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, because I think that'd be
Yeah.
really interesting to talk about. But um, yeah, and so I think that's what's really cool for me about a movie like Parasite is that like it is completely original. I mean, yeah, there are certain tropes,
Yeah.
and there were a couple of things in there that were predictable, but overall, it felt like something I'd never seen before, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that people should see it, and that I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that it won all kinds of awards, especially not to tokenize it or anything, but like given how much controversy there has been over the years of, hashtag Oscars so white and,
Mm-hmm.
lack of female directors and other things like that, that I think it's really cool that not only did not only was the best picture a foreign language film with subtitles, but it also, was made in South Korea and features a fully South Korean cast. Like, I think that's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm glad that it didn't just get best international film. They changed it from best foreign language film to best international film
Okay.
this year, which I think is also kind of cool because just because it's made in another country doesn't mean it's going to be in a quote unquote foreign language, and also
Yeah.
that sets up like as opposed to what. So I mean, I guess international does as well, but um, yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that it didn't just win that and be sort of like, because I think a lot of times that's what happens is that like a movie like that would get that award, but it wouldn't get Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's really cool, and yeah. Um, yeah, is
Let's
there any
see.
other movie you wanted to touch on, or anything else you
Um,
wanted to
I think
ask
I
me
think
about, or?
no, I think we've gotten a good point of it. I think
Mm-hmm.
because obviously we love to talk and we want to keep these at the relatively an average length. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if we touch on another one, we may go a little long. But
Yeah.
if y'all want to hear more about it, then obviously let us know. We've been more than happy. I think I'm more than happy to continue talking about the films that have gotten even just nominated, because obviously there's so many of them. We listed like a ton of them, and we only touched on maybe like
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4. But
Mm-hmm.
let us know, ASWAYDPOD on the Twitter machine. Um, Amelia is at Shake Meets World. I'm at A Black Sparrow. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want to hear more about our thoughts. If you want us to clarify some thoughts on some of these films that we already talked about, like that's totally something I am cool with. But I
Mm-hmm.
just think we're unfortunately out of time.
Yeah.
So before we split, of course, we were going to keep up with the Amelia. What the fuck is this? Uh, so this one is not a story. This one is an image. So I think we will. I may just like save it and make sure that it like a version of it gets in the show notes so that those who are listening
Mhm.
can see what it is. Because
Mhm.
that's a thing that not to wax poetic on it too long, but I was just like, eventually I'm gonna run out of like stuff that Amelia hasn't seen that is like story based. So let me just see if I
Mhm.
can find ridiculous images. So
Oh yeah, I think that's
go
fine.
ahead and click on that if you're ready, Amelia.
Okay.
And I do my best to make sure that like stuff that I find for this is not photoshopped, or at least not obviously photoshopped, because obviously then it's like who cares, unless it's like photoshopped to be like fucking weird. But
What the fuck?
yeah. So the image is called Fixing Pipes Egyptian Edition, and it is this man who is standing probably a good I'm very bad at math, but I would wager to say he's at least 4 stories up, and he's just like standing in his bare feet on like some pipes, just
Yep.
just standing
Yeah,
there.
just pipes on the side of a building. He's just standing on
It's like
them.
a
Yeah,
and
at
it's like
least
a
4 or 5 stories up.
yeah.
Oh
And
my God.
there's nothing to break his fall. Like he's not harnessed in.
No.
He's just like
Uh-uh.
it's like he's like scaling them like he's in a spy film, but it's like
Well, and
bright day.
also he's not, it doesn't look like he's standing on a pipe that's like parallel to the ground.
Like it's
It
like it
looks
would
like,
support his weight. It's like he's just like Spider-Manning on kind of.
yes. I mean, he looks like he's holding on to a pipe at the top, but like
Maybe he's got his
it
arm in like a window just out of the picture to like kind of help stabilize him,
right.
but like
Right. But yeah, it just is like his feet flat against the side of a pipe. And I'm like, I mean, I'm afraid of heights, but
yes,
this
me
isn't
too.
so much making me, I mean, it is making me afraid, but not like viscerally, I guess, the way I would be if I was in his position. But it is just like, what, how did he get here?
Yes.
What is he doing up there? Did he get down? How
And
did he get down?
it's like an
Like,
enclosed space too, so it's like like
yeah,
my creative brain immediately is going to like, oh, he like climbed out of a window into like this like enclosed like shaft
right.
of his like building.
But at the
So like
same time, these windows don't look very big, and they also don't look like they just open easily.
no,
So I'm
for
very
definitely not.
confused as to like how this happened and like
He like
what happened.
he dropped something important down the shaft, and he's like just like slowly just like scaling down these pipes to go and get it, because I can see like there's like some, it looks like a string of like spheres at the bottom there. I don't know. It's weird. But like I said, it'll be in the show notes, so you can see this image and go, what the fuck? Along with us. But so
Okay, I
yeah.
love this because I'm like reading the some of the comments,
Yeah.
and whatever, most of them are just whatever, but this one says, can confirm this is legit. I used to live in Egypt. This looks exactly like how they'd build some of our apartment complexes in Alexandria. People did weird stuff like this all the time. All the
Mhm.
time? What?
All the time. You kidding me? The
Oh
top
my
one is
goodness.
surely has a safety harness. Nope, he's not even wearing a belt to hold his pants up.
No?
Oof, imagine like
Oh.
trying to do this and then like your pants start trying to be like, we're out.
Yep.
That that's terrifying to me. So, all right, that's all I've got for you for this week. We've got some great topics coming up, but we're not going to spoil them because we haven't decided on what we're going to talk about next, mostly. But we are going to try and throw one of these lovely little sessions at you every Friday. So check us out. We are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for real this time. I
Mm-hmm.
think the first time I said it, we weren't quite yet there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Google Podcasts, a couple of other things, the ones that I'm not terribly familiar with, but we
Yes.
do have an RSS feed if we are not in your podcatcher of choice. So you'll be able to tap into that. We're obviously on Anchor FM here, so you can check us out. I've said our Twitter handle a bunch of times at this point, so I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
do it again. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. You can always give us your feedback. We love it. We really appreciate it. Again, everybody that's spoken up and let us know what they thought.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to whoever was listening to us in France.
Yes. Yeah, we were
Uh,
doing some analytics searching and
yeah,
shout out to France.
yeah. So hopefully they come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and let us know what you thought. And yeah, with that, I have been
Uh,
Amelia.
I have been Sherrick, and hey, don't lick your old that old dusty corner of your dresser that you haven't thought about in like 3 weeks. Don't do it.
Perfect. Perfect ending. All right.
Bye.
Bye.